I knew something was off the second Hannah lit the candles. We weren't the type of couple who did candlelight dinners on random Tuesday nights. Hell, we hadn't done them on purpose in over a year. Between her late hours at the nonprofit and my never-ending client calls, we barely had time to breathe, let alone romance. But that night, she'd made her famous salmon with lemon glaze, poured us both a glass of wine, and even wore that navy silk blouse she used to call her date night armor. I should have known she was dressing for battle. So, she started, swirling her wine like she was trying to hypnotize me with it. Can we talk about something different tonight? That's never a good start. Sure, I said, trying to match her calm. My heart already knew better. She took a breath, looked me dead in the eyes, and dropped the grenade. I want to open the marriage. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. What? I mean, not leave the marriage, she said quickly, hands up like I was a bomb about to detonate. I've been reading about this concept. Honesty through freedom. It's about letting go of old expectations, owning our needs. Exploring. Together or separately. My fork clinked against the plate. I hadn't even taken a bite yet. The salmon smelled rich, citrusy, perfect, and completely unappetizing. You want to fuck other people, I said flatly. She flinched. It's not just about sex, Dylan. Then what is it about? She sighed, and I could see the script she'd rehearsed flicker behind her eyes. It's about not pretending anymore. I love you. I'm committed to you. But don't you feel it? The stagnation? We haven't touched in weeks. Months, really. My throat closed up. I took a gulp of wine, more out of desperation than desire. So your solution is to invite other people into our marriage. Not invite, she said softly. Allow. No secrets. No lies. Just space. For honesty. There it was again. Honesty. As if her sleeping with someone else would somehow make us more real. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table, shatter the wine glasses, ask her who the hell she was and what she'd done with the woman I married. But instead, I stared at her, the curve of her collarbone peeking through the silk, her lips glossy and sure, and realized the truth. She'd already made up her mind. My agreement was just a formality. So I nodded. One slow, agonizing nod. Okay. Her whole body relaxed, like she'd been bracing for war and got a peace treaty instead. Really? She said, her voice small now, vulnerable. Yeah, I lied. If this is what you need. I couldn't taste the salmon when I finally bit into it. I chewed like a machine, my stomach hollow, heart hammering. Later that night, she climbed into bed beside me like nothing had changed. I stared at the ceiling, the room too quiet, her breathing too steady. She didn't reach for me. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just rolled onto her side and fell asleep, her back to me. I lay there, blinking into the dark, wondering when exactly I'd lost her, and if I ever truly had her in the first place. Something had broken, and she didn't even notice. It started with a text. Guess who's back in town? I was halfway through a dull spreadsheet at work, pretending to care about quarterly projections, when Hannah's message lit up my phone. I stared at it for a second, not even sure I cared enough to ask. Who? I replied. The three dots blinked for a moment. Then, Harper. My chest went still for a second. Harper, Hannah's twin sister. I hadn't seen her in nearly 6 years. The last time had been at their mother's funeral, a surreal, emotionally numbing weekend that Harper had somehow managed to navigate with equal parts sarcasm and grace. I remembered how she'd hugged me in the church parking lot, arms lingering just long enough to make me forget the world was crumbling around us. Then she'd left, moved to Seattle, married a guy named Evan, and vanished. Apparently, not anymore. Divorce hit her hard. Hannah said that evening as she poured herself a second glass of Pinot. She needs to reset. Heal. I told her she could crash at my friend's guest house for a while. You remember Sherry, right? I nodded, though I didn't. My mind was already elsewhere. Harper's coming for dinner Friday, she added. It'll be nice. Normal. Normal. That word meant nothing anymore. Friday came, and with it, a storm, not outside, but inside me. I found myself checking the clock all afternoon, then the mirror. I trimmed my beard, changed shirts twice. Not because I cared what Harper thought, but because I did. I shouldn't have, but I did. When she arrived, the air shifted. She hadn't changed much. A little thinner, maybe. Her dark hair was shorter, styled in soft waves that framed her cheekbones with the kind of effortless chaos most people pay stylists to create. She wore a leather jacket, tight jeans, and boots like she'd walked out of a goddamn indie movie. "Dylan," she said with that same smirk she'd always had, like everything she said had a punchline you weren't quite in on. "Still married to my sister." Brave man. I laughed, genuinely, for the first time in weeks. She hugged me, and I felt it again. That warm, grounding presence. Like she wasn't just touching me, but seeing me. I caught a faint whiff of her perfume, something smoky and floral, and instantly hated how much I noticed. Dinner was strange in all the predictable ways. Harper joked, Hannah bragged, mostly about her new freedom mindset. I tried not to visibly wince each time she said words like empowered or fluid. "So," Harper said, popping a roasted carrot into her mouth and pointing her fork at me, "how's married life, really?" The question was flippant, but her eyes held something deeper. Concern? Curiosity? Solidarity? I hesitated. "It's evolving," I said carefully. Hannah laughed. "That's one way to put it." "Oh God," Harper rolled her eyes. "Are you in one of your phases again?" "Excuse me. You know, like that time you were into yoga and wouldn't shut up about breath work. Or when you wanted to move to Bali and become a travel blogger." "This is different," Hannah snapped, too quickly. I looked down at my plate. The tension crackled. "Okay," Harper said softly. "Sorry, but I saw it. The tightness in her jaw, the way her fingers curled around the stem of her wine glass. She didn't believe in this open marriage bullshit any more than I did." Later, when Hannah stepped out to take a call, one of her group chats, the new euphemism, Harper and I were alone in the kitchen. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching me load the dishwasher. "She really said that to you?" Harper asked. "Open marriage?" "Yeah," I muttered, slamming a plate in harder than I meant to. "She's relentless. That's one word for it." Harper shook her head. "God, I remember when you two used to sneak off at family dinners just to make out like teenagers." I smiled bitterly. "Feels like a lifetime ago." She was quiet for a beat. Then, softly, "I'm sorry." I looked up. "For what?" "For her. For putting you in this position." I wanted to say it wasn't her fault. That Hannah was her own person. That I could handle it. But none of those words came. Instead, I just said, "Thanks." She gave me a small, knowing smile. "Well, look, if you ever need to vent or get drunk and scream into the void, I'm around." I nodded, suddenly too aware of how close she was standing, of the soft curve of her hip against the granite countertop, of the way her eyes, more tired than I remembered, still managed to hold something dangerous. Then Hannah returned. The moment snapped. Harper didn't stay long after that. Something about jet lag. But as she hugged me goodbye at the door, her breath warm against my neck, she whispered, "Take care of yourself, Dylan. She's not the only one who gets to feel free." And just like that, she was gone. The house felt colder when I came back inside. Hannah was on the couch, texting. She didn't look up. "She's changed," I said. "Yeah," Hannah replied, not glancing away from her phone. "Heartbreak does that." I stared at her, this woman who used to be my world, and wondered when, exactly, her heart had stopped breaking for me. The night she went on her first date, she dressed like she was 20 again. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching Hannah twist in front of the mirror. She wore a short black dress I hadn't seen in years, maybe never. Her legs, smooth and bare, stretched endlessly into the heels she only ever used for weddings or galas. She applied lipstick with casual precision, then smacked her lips, inspecting the effect. Ruby red, loud, confident. She looked beautiful, and I hated her for it. "You look nice," I managed, voice thick. She turned slightly, flashing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks." I figured, why not make a good first impression? I didn't ask who it was. She hadn't told me, and I hadn't pushed. Something about keeping it casual, just exploring, as she liked to phrase it. No specifics. Just freedom. Honesty through omission, I guess. "When will you be back?" I asked, the words sour in my mouth. She shrugged. "Not too late." That didn't mean anything anymore. She grabbed her coat, checked her phone, then leaned in to kiss my cheek. Mechanical, impersonal. Her perfume lingered as she pulled away. "Don't wait up." I didn't say goodbye. Just stood there, the door clicking shut behind her like the final nail in something I hadn't realized was already buried. I paced the living room for a while. Tried to distract myself with TV, but every show made me think of her. Of us. I poured a whiskey. Then another. By 9 p.m., The house felt like a vacuum. Every sound hollow, every breath echoing. That's when my phone buzzed. Harper, did she leave? I hesitated, then typed. Yeah. A few seconds later. I'm bringing takeout. Don't argue. She showed up 20 minutes later, coat soaked with rain and holding a bag of Thai food and a bottle of wine. Her hair was frizzy from the weather, cheeks flushed. She looked good. Real. Not styled or curated. Just alive in a way Hannah hadn't looked in months. I figured you shouldn't be alone, she said, brushing past me. And I didn't want to be, either. We sat on the couch, boxes of food spread out like a miniature feast. Red curry, spring rolls, pad CEW, the works. Harper poured the wine while I turned down the lights. The TV flickered in the background, muted. So, she said, mouth full of noodles. Do you know who it is? Nope. Jesus, she muttered. I can't believe she's actually doing this. I didn't reply. Sorry, she added quickly. That was tactless. It's fine. I poked at my curry, appetite gone. I think I just needed to hear someone else say it. We sat in silence for a moment, the kind that doesn't feel awkward, just heavy. Waited. She leaned back, stretching her legs out onto the coffee table. You know, I always thought you two had it figured out. Yeah, so did I. Her eyes lingered on me, thoughtful. You seem tired. I am. Of her. I looked at her, really looked. She was curled into the corner of my couch, like she belonged there. Hair damp, a loose t-shirt under her open jacket. No makeup, just freckles and faint lines around her eyes. I'm tired of pretending it doesn't hurt, I said finally. Her voice softened. Then stop pretending. The words hit harder than I expected. We didn't talk for a while after that. Just sat there, the wine doing its slow work, thawing whatever ice had built up inside me. It was the first time in weeks I'd felt seen. So what about you? I asked. You doing okay? She gave a half laugh. Define okay. Evan. Dating some blonde Pilates instructor. Her smile was tight. 10 years together, and he replaced me in 3 months. I'm sorry. I'm not, she said quickly, then paused. No, that's a lie. I am sorry, but I'm also free. I nodded. Freedom, I echoed. Seems to be the theme lately. Harper tilted her glass, watching the wine swirl. Yeah, funny how it feels more like grief sometimes. I looked over at her, met her eyes. Something hung between us, invisible but real. A shared weight, loss, betrayal, and maybe something else. You ever wonder, she asked, voice lower now, if we marry people because of who we hope they'll become, instead of who they actually are? All the time. We were quiet again, but this time it wasn't heavy, it was intimate. When Harper stood to leave, it was nearly midnight. She gathered her coat slowly, like part of her wasn't ready to go. Thanks for letting me crash your pity party, she joked, stepping toward the door. Anytime. She turned to face me, her expression softer now. You don't deserve this, Dylan. I swallowed. Neither do you. And then, I don't know why I did it. I reached out and tucked a damp strand of hair behind her ear. My fingers lingered for half a second too long. Her breath caught, almost imperceptibly. Neither of us moved. Then she stepped back, eyes flicking away. Good night. Good night. The door clicked shut. And for the second time that night, I stood in silence, heart pounding, haunted by perfume and possibilities. Only this time, it wasn't Hannah I was thinking about. I used to think boundaries were lines you drew once and stuck to. But it turns out, they're more like fences in a storm. They creak, they bend, and sometimes, when no one's looking, they collapse entirely. After that night with Harper, things changed. Subtly at first. She started showing up more often, with groceries, random excuses, half-hearted reasons. Thought you might need help cleaning out the garage, she said one Saturday. I have no idea how to use a power drill, she said the next. I knew better, but I let her come. The house had grown too quiet without Hannah. Not that she was ever fully present anymore, but even her absence had weight. She was always gone now. Overnight trips, late dinners, connection time with her new friends. She didn't even bother hiding it anymore. The first time she spent the night away, she texted me at 1:43 a.m. Don't wait up. This is what we agreed to, right? I didn't reply. I just poured myself a drink and stood at the window until the sun came up. Harper started filling the spaces Hannah left behind. Slowly, naturally, she helped me repaint the spare room one weekend, just because the yellow was depressing. I told her she didn't need to. She told me to shut up and hand her the roller. We worked side by side all afternoon, windows open, old music playing through a Bluetooth speaker. It felt easy, too easy. At one point, while edging the ceiling, she laughed at something I said. One of those deep, belly laughs that made her lean back and wipe tears from her eyes. I hadn't made anyone laugh like that in years. God, she said, catching her breath. You were always the funny one. I don't know how Hannah ever convinced you she was the interesting sister. I glanced at her, paint smudged on her cheek, hair tied up messily. The sunlight caught the freckles across her nose. She looked happy, or at least less sad than usual. That's not how I remember it, I said. Well, she replied, you were young and blinded by boobs. I snorted. Not untrue. We both laughed, and then it happened. A brush of fingers. We'd both reached for the same paint tray. Just a quick touch. But it lingered. Her hand warm, her skin soft. Neither of us moved for a second too long. We locked eyes. My stomach flipped. Then she pulled away. Quick. Almost too quick. I stepped back, heart thudding in my chest. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was loaded. Heavy. Electric. She started. Yeah, I said, clearing my throat. We should finish the trim. We painted in near silence after that. Music still played, but neither of us spoke much. Every now and then, I'd catch her glancing at me. Not nervous, just aware. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed alone, Hannah's side untouched, the scent of paint still lingering in my hair. My hand still tingled where hers had touched it. It was ridiculous. Nothing had happened. Not really. But it had. That simple contact burned brighter in my memory than any kiss Hannah had given me in months. The next few days were a blur of mixed signals. Harper sent a photo of the painted room with a text. Not bad for amateurs. I replied, couldn't have done it without you. She sent a wink emoji. I stared at it too long. I started offering to help her with things. Small stuff. Replacing a light bulb in the guest house. Tightening a leaky faucet. She'd greet me at the door in loose shirts and pajama pants, hair still wet from a shower. Every visit felt more dangerous. We never talked about that moment in the spare room, but it hovered between us. One afternoon, while Hannah was out of town for a weekend retreat, I drove Harper to a nursery to help her pick out succulents for her new window boxes. She walked ahead of me through rows of plants, her hands brushing leaves, her back arched slightly as she bent to smell lavender. I caught myself staring. Hard. She turned, caught me, smirked, said nothing. That night, we sat on her porch, sipping cider as the sun dipped behind the hills. A breeze picked up, brushing her hair against her face. She tucked it behind her ear. I watched her do it. Too closely. Do you remember when I first met you? She asked suddenly. I smiled. You hated me. I thought you were smug, she said, laughing. Too charming for your own good. And now, she turned her head, meeting my gaze. Now I think you're lonely. I looked down. You're not wrong. She touched my hand. Not accidentally this time. Her fingers curled against mine, gentle, comforting. But I pulled away. Not because I wanted to. Because I had to. Harper, I said, voice tight, we can't. I know, she whispered. We sat in silence again. Her hand rested on her thigh now. Mine clenched the edge of my chair. I should go, I said. She nodded, eyes distant. Of course. I stood, turned toward the steps, then paused. I looked back at her. She didn't move. I'm not sure where the line is anymore, I said. Her voice was low, almost trembling. Maybe we already crossed it. I drove home with the windows down, letting the cold air numb my skin. The house was dark when I arrived. Empty. Still. In the silence, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. I wasn't just angry at Hannah anymore. I was terrified of how much I wanted Harper. Harper showed up without knocking. It was a Thursday. Gray skies. A thin drizzle tapping against the windows like a warning. Hannah was gone again. Another midweek reset, whatever that meant. I didn't ask anymore. I didn't want to know the answer. Or maybe I already did. I was in the kitchen, halfway through a sandwich I wasn't hungry for, when I heard the front door open. I brought wine, Harper called out. Her voice was lighter than I'd heard it in days. And I may have stolen your favorite chips from the corner store. She turned the corner and stopped when she saw me. You okay? I must have looked worse than I thought. I hadn't shaved. My eyes were puffy from a night of bad sleep and worse dreams. I shrugged. She called this morning, I said. Harper set the wine down carefully. Hannah. She said she's feeling liberated. I scoffed. That was the word she used. Liberated. Harper made a face. She always did like big words to cover small acts. I forced a smile, then sat down, letting my head fall into my hands. I don't know how much longer I can pretend this is working. She hesitated. Then she sat across from me, elbows on the table. You don't have to pretend. Silence settled like fog. Outside, the rain fell harder. In here, the air thickened. I've been thinking about Evan, she said quietly. I looked up. I saw a photo of him last night. At some club. That girl, the Pilates one, was on his lap like a fucking trophy. You know what the worst part was? I shook my head. He looked happy. Like everything he ever had with me meant nothing. Her voice cracked. I saw her eyes gloss, but she blinked the tears back before they could fall. I gave him 10 years, she said. 10 years, and he just replaced me. I reached across the table, placing my hand on hers before I could second guess it. She didn't pull away. I know the feeling, I said. Hannah doesn't even look at me anymore. Like I'm furniture. She looked at me then. Really looked. You're not, she whispered. Neither of us moved. I should go, she said suddenly, standing too fast. No, I said, standing too. Wait. The room pulsed with something sharp and fragile. Like if we moved too fast, it would shatter. Or ignite. I hate how this feels, she said. Like everything we believed in was a lie. I took a breath. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe they just stopped believing. Harper stepped closer. Do you ever wonder if we picked the wrong people? All the time. And that was it. The space between us disappeared. No one lunged. No one grabbed. It just happened. 1 second we were standing apart, and the next we weren't. Her forehead touched mine. Her hand found my chest, right over my heart. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in months, I felt the ache of being wanted. Not for performance, not for obligation, but for me. Her lips brushed mine. Just once. Soft. Slow. Searching. We both pulled back, breathless. Eyes wide. I'm sorry, she said instantly. Don't be. I whispered. Please don't be. She looked like she wanted to run. Or cry. Or both. This isn't who I am, she said. It's not who I thought I was either. We stood there, staring at each other, the weight of it all pressing down on us like gravity. A phone rang, distant, from the living room. Neither of us moved to answer it. I shouldn't have come, she said. But you did. She blinked. Do you think we'll regret this? We already do, I said. But that doesn't change what it meant. And I meant that. Every word. Because that kiss, that small, stolen moment, felt more honest than anything Hannah had given me in a year. Harper turned toward the door, her hand hovering over the knob. Then she stopped. I should tell you something. I braced myself. When she called earlier, I heard her. What? She called me before she called you. I picked up without thinking. She was laughing, talking about how easy this all felt. How sex without strings is the purest kind. Like she's found herself. And she said, she stopped, face tightening. She said she hasn't missed you once. The room tipped for a second. My knees weakened. Jesus, I breathed. I shouldn't have told you. I couldn't carry it alone. I sat down. The air felt thin. I thought you deserved to know, she added. I nodded, numb. Harper lingered at the door again. We're not bad people, she said quietly. Then why do I feel like one? She opened the door. The rain had lightened outside, but it still fell in soft sheets. Because we still care, she said. Then she was gone. The silence returned, this time thick with guilt. And something else. Longing. I sat there for a long time after, staring at the spot she'd stood in, wishing things were different, knowing they weren't, and wondering if this was the moment where everything truly began to unravel. She wanted me to meet him. Hannah stood in the kitchen, bright-eyed and oddly cheerful for a woman about to introduce her husband to the man she was sleeping with. She wore one of her favorite sundresses, soft green with white trim, and she moved with this unsettling confidence, like everything was exactly as it should be. I think it'll help, she said. You meeting him, breaking down the tension. Tension, I echoed, deadpan. You've been distant, she replied, turning her back to me as she rearranged the cheese plate for the 5th time. I thought this would give us a chance to be adults about it. No weirdness, just honesty. That word again, honesty, as if dragging her lover into our home was some kind of virtue. I should have said no, should have slammed the fridge shut, told her to go to hell, walked out. But I didn't. Some masochistic part of me needed to see who she was choosing over me, who she found liberating. Harper showed up first. She hadn't been invited, technically, but she'd known. I'd texted her earlier that afternoon. She wants me to meet the guy, tonight, at our place. Her response had been fast. Do you want me to come? I hadn't said yes. I hadn't said no. But now, standing at my front door, Harper wore jeans and a loose blouse, her hair tied back. She looked like someone bracing for a car crash. You okay? She asked. I gave her a tight smile. Ask me in an hour. The doorbell rang 5 minutes later. Hannah all but skipped to open it. And then, there he was. Tall, athletic, tanned in that I hike once a week but don't sweat way. He wore a linen button-down, half open at the collar, and a smirk that made my stomach churn. This is Evan, Hannah said, beaming. Evan, this is Dylan, my husband. My brain stalled. I stared, and then I saw Harper stiffen beside me. No, 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 no. Evan. That Evan. Her ex-husband Evan. Harper, he said, stunned. Jesus. She looked like she'd been punched in the gut. Her face drained of color, lips parted in silent disbelief. What are you? You two know each other? Hannah asked, blinking. Evan's eyes flicked to mine, then back to Harper. You didn't tell her, he muttered. You didn't tell either of them. I didn't know. Harper snapped. I didn't know it was you. Hannah looked from me to Harper, confused. What's going on? She's my ex-wife, Evan said flatly. The room froze. Hannah stepped back. Wait. What? You're sleeping with your sister's ex-husband, I said, the words bitter in my mouth. No, I mean, yes, but... Jesus Christ, Harper breathed, backing toward the hallway. Harper. I tried to reach for her, but she was already moving. Don't, she said, her voice breaking. I can't. Not right now. She pushed past me and out the front door. I followed. The air outside was thick and wet, the sky threatening rain. She stood in the driveway, arms crossed tightly over her chest. You okay? I asked softly. She shook her head. I feel sick. How the hell did this happen? I don't know, she whispered. She never said his name. I thought it was just some guy. And Evan, he never mentioned her either. Just that he was seeing someone new. Someone different. We stood there in silence, the weight of it all settling in. She knew. Harper said suddenly, voice hard. Hannah knew I still wasn't over him. And now she's flaunting him. She didn't know it was Evan. Maybe not consciously, Harper said, eyes fierce. But she knew it would hurt someone. I ran a hand through my hair. I can't go back in there. Me neither. And then it happened. No hesitation this time. No accidental touches or stolen glances. We were just in each other's arms. The kiss wasn't soft. It wasn't romantic. It was angry. Raw, desperate, like we were both drowning and this was the only breath left in the world. When we pulled apart, we didn't speak. There was nothing to say that wouldn't make it worse. We got in my car, drove. No plan, no destination, just distance. We ended up at a motel 20 miles out, one of those places with flickering signs and worn carpets. I paid in cash. The man behind the desk didn't ask questions. Inside the room, we stood in silence. Then Harper looked at me. Really looked, and her eyes softened. This isn't revenge, she said. Not for me. I know. It's not because we're broken. No, I said, my voice thick. It's because they broke us. She stepped toward me, and then the world went quiet. Whatever guilt we carried, whatever shame, whatever anger, it all slipped away. And for a few short hours, we didn't think about Hannah, or Evan, or what would happen when the sun came up. We just let ourselves feel wanted. For the first time in what felt like forever, we promised it was a mistake. That's what people like us say. People who cross lines they swore they never would. We whisper things like, this can't happen again, while secretly hoping it might. Harper and I agreed the motel night was a lapse in judgment. That we were drunk on betrayal. Hurt. Lonely. That we could pull back before it got worse. But we didn't. We saw each other again 3 days later. Then again the next week. And then again after that. Always when Hannah was exploring. Always when Evan was posting shirtless selfies from rooftop bars. We didn't talk much about what we were doing. We just existed in the spaces left behind by the people we used to love. A quiet ritual of guilt and comfort. But secrecy is its own kind of poison. It starts small, keeping your phone close, hesitating before answering a call. Then it grows teeth. I started locking my screen again, turning off message previews. I became the very thing I'd resented in Hannah for months. And she didn't even notice. She thought I was jealous of Evan, that I was sulking in the corner while she blossomed. Her word, not mine. "You're withdrawing," she said one night over dinner. "Is it really so hard for you to accept that I need more than just this?" I looked across the table at her. This woman I'd once believed was the safest place in the world, and I felt nothing but fatigue. "Maybe I need more, too," I said. She didn't flinch, just raised an eyebrow. "Then go find it." And the worst part? I already had. Harper and I kept circling each other in that liminal space, too close to stop, too scared to fall. We never said, "I love you." We never talked about the future. It was all unspoken. But the silence between us felt more honest than the words I exchanged with Hannah every day. Still, the weight of the lie grew heavier. Hannah had started asking questions. Small ones. Casual. "Why were you out so late? Did Harper stop by again? Do you two talk often?" I deflected, sidestepped, lied through my teeth. And Harper was breaking down. One night, she showed up at my place wearing a sweatshirt and old jeans, eyes red from crying. "I saw Evan today," she said, collapsing onto the couch. "At that juice place on Melrose. With Hannah, holding hands." I sat beside her, heart sinking. She looked so proud, Dylan. Like she'd won something. Like he was her goddamn trophy. Harper's voice cracked. "It's like they're trying to erase us." I took her hand, held it tight. "They can't." She looked at me. "Then why does it feel like they already have?" We didn't sleep together that night. We just lay on the couch, her head on my chest, my fingers tracing absent shapes on her back. We stayed like that until sunrise, two people drowning in a lie they didn't know how to stop telling. Hannah was waiting when I got home. She stood in the living room, arms crossed, her phone in her hand. "I called you 3 times, she said. "I needed air," I replied. "I went for a drive." She narrowed her eyes. "In the middle of the night?" "Yeah." "Alone?" I met her gaze. Didn't blink. "Yes." She nodded, slowly. "You know, you're not the only one allowed to have feelings in all this." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means this has been hard on me, too." I laughed. "Bitter? Hard? You're the one who wanted it. Who pushed for it?" "Because I needed to feel something again," she said. "Anything. You could have tried feeling it with me." I snapped. We stood there in silence, two ghosts arguing in a house full of memories. She turned and walked upstairs without another word. I stared at the front door, wondering how long before she opened it, and didn't come back. Later that week, everything nearly came crashing down. I was driving Harper home. She had left a sweater in the back seat. Nothing dramatic, just a light gray pullover she'd borrowed when it got cold. I hadn't noticed it, but Hannah did. We were leaving for dinner, a rare attempt at salvaging some kind of routine, when she opened the back door and pulled it out. "What's this?" I turned, heart in my throat. "It's probably Harper's. She was in the car last week." Hannah held it up, staring at it like it was radioactive. "She hasn't worn this in years. I would know." She looked at me. "What's going on?" "Nothing. Dylan. Nothing." She stared a second longer. Then she smiled, sharp, cold. "Okay," she said. "If you say so." She dropped the sweater on the passenger seat and got into the car. I knew then, she didn't believe me. And she wouldn't ask again. Not directly. But the walls were closing in. That night, I texted Harper. "She found your sweater. I think she knows." She replied. "What do we do?" I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I didn't know anymore. What started as survival, two broken people finding warmth in the dark, had turned into something more dangerous. And we were both standing in a minefield. It was the sweater. That stupid, soft gray sweater, the one Harper used to throw over tank tops in the fall. The one I used to steal and wear when she left it at my place in college. I should have burned it the second Hannah picked it up from the back seat. But I didn't. And now I know she never let it go. She didn't confront me. That would have been too direct, too honest for someone who once told me, "True power is in what you don't say." Instead, she planned her revenge. It started subtly. A few extra smiles at her phone. Longer showers. Unusual politeness. I should have seen the signs. But I was too busy navigating my own lies to notice her sharpening. It happened the night of her parents' anniversary dinner. A tradition. Every year, Hannah insisted we host. Her perfect table settings, matching wine glasses, soft jazz humming in the background. Only this year, it wasn't just family. Evan was there. And so was Harper. When I saw her walk through the front door, I knew something was off. Her face was pale, like she'd been called to the guillotine. She didn't meet my eyes. She hugged Hannah stiffly and avoided Evan altogether. I tried to pull her aside in the kitchen, but she brushed past me like I was no one. Harper, don't, she hissed under her breath. Not here. Dinner was a slow-motion disaster. Hannah sat at the head of the table like a queen with her court, smiling just a little too wide. Evan sat beside her, smug and silent. Her parents gushed about how nice it was to see everyone together again. Harper barely touched her food. And then, right as her father raised a toast, it happened. Hannah stood. There's actually something I'd like to say, she announced, voice sugar-sweet. A toast of my own. She lifted her glass and turned toward Harper and me. I just want to acknowledge how grateful I am for this new chapter in our lives. For the clarity, the honesty, the freedom. And most of all, she paused for effect, for how much closer we've all become. There was an odd silence. I saw Harper's grip tighten on her fork. But of course, Hannah continued, not everyone's been as forthcoming. Isn't that right, Evan? Evan blinked. What? You didn't tell him? She asked, pretending to be surprised. That's unlike you. And then she turned to me. Dylan, you should probably know, Harper's been keeping you all to herself, even after everything. My stomach dropped. I'm sorry, I said, barely above a whisper. She turned back to Evan. You should tell them what you found. Evan looked like a man who'd just realized he was part of a setup. Hannah, Harper said sharply, voice cracking. No, Hannah said sweetly. Go ahead, Evan. Tell them what you found on Harper's phone. The photos, the texts, the motel receipts. Harper shot up from her chair. You went through my phone? I told him everything, Hannah said, smiling now. After I saw your sweater in Dylan's car, I put the pieces together, and it all made sense. Evan stood, slow and seething. You said it was over, he growled at Harper. It was, she yelled. Until you slept with my sister. The room erupted. Her father dropped his wine glass. Her mother gasped. I sat frozen as Evan slammed his napkin on the table and stormed out, muttering, I'm done. Harper turned to Hannah, eyes burning. You did this on purpose. You betrayed me first, Hannah said, ice cold. You betrayed me. Harper shouted. You stole the man I built a life with. And you slept with mine. I stood then. Stop. All of you. This is insane. But it was too late. The dam had broken. You're no better, Hannah said, rounding on me. I gave you the freedom to explore, to be honest, and you turned it into a secret affair. You didn't give me freedom, I said. You gave yourself permission. Her lip curled. Don't act like the victim. You could have told me, but you're a coward. And you're a manipulator. Her mother stood. That's enough. But it wasn't. Because then Hannah said it. The final blow. Now we're even. The room fell silent. A knife couldn't have cut through the tension faster. Harper looked at me, heartbroken. She planned this. She wanted this. And she was right. Hannah had set the stage. She'd baited the trap. And we'd walked right into it. I want you both out of this house, Hannah said, her voice low and deadly. I didn't argue. I grabbed my coat. Harper followed, shoulders trembling. We didn't speak until we reached the driveway. Then Harper whispered. She told him everything. And he believed her. I'm sorry, I said uselessly. She wanted to burn it all down, she whispered. And we handed her the match. Neither of us cried. Neither of us screamed. We just stood in the cold, staring at the ruins of everything we'd known. And the worst part? We'd helped build the fire. There's a moment after impact, after the crash, after the explosion, when everything goes quiet. Not peaceful, just hollow. That's what the days after the dinner felt like. No texts, no calls, no screaming, just silence. Heavy, echoing, the kind that settles into your bones. Harper disappeared. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her social media went dark. I drove by the guest house one morning to check on her, but it was empty. Curtains drawn. Lights off. It looked like a place waiting to forget. I couldn't blame her. Hannah, meanwhile, moved like nothing had happened. She walked through the house humming to herself, left dishes in the sink, slept in the middle of the bed. Every now and then, she'd glance at me with this small, victorious smile, the kind someone wears when they know they've already won. She didn't ask me to leave. That would have been too merciful. Instead, she let me rot slowly, piece by piece, in the shell of the life we built. I tried to go to work, to pretend everything was normal. But normal doesn't survive scandal. On Tuesday, my boss called me into his office. He didn't look me in the eye. There's been chatter, he said, fiddling with a pen. Personal matters. Things that shouldn't involve the firm, but unfortunately, well, clients talk. I swallowed. What kind of chatter? Your wife? Her sister? A man named Evan. A family dinner meltdown. He winced. Someone recorded it. Posted a clip. The blood drained from my face. It's not about judgment, he said. It's about optics. We can't have our lead architect wrapped up in some viral soap opera. And just like that, I was put on extended leave. The fallout was slow and brutal. People stopped making eye contact in grocery stores. Old friends became polite strangers. My inbox filled with shallow concern from people who just wanted gossip confirmation. Worse, my mother called. She said she just wanted to be happy. She murmured over the phone, her voice tight. And now none of you are. No one ever tells you how grief works when you're still technically married. It sneaks in through the mundane. You forget someone won't be at the dinner table, and then you remember. And that remembering is its own kind of violence. Hannah paraded Evan around like nothing was wrong. They went public fast. Instagram soft launch, couples yoga classes, brunch selfies with cutesy captions like new chapters dizzy. Everyone knew it was a performance. Everyone also pretended not to care. Except me. I hated how easily they crafted their own narrative. As if Harper and I had destroyed something pure. As if they hadn't gutted two families to play house. But that's how people work, isn't it? They'll believe whatever version makes them feel safest. 2 weeks after the dinner, I came home late and found Harper sitting on my porch steps. Her hair was wet from rain. Her jeans were muddy. She looked like someone who hadn't spoken out loud in days. I couldn't stay there, she said softly. Where have you been? Nowhere, she whispered. Everywhere. I opened the door. She didn't move. I don't know what to do with any of this, she said, eyes rimmed with red. I don't know how to make it stop hurting. You don't, I said. You just learn how to sit with it. We stood in the hallway, still damp, still broken. I don't hate you, she said. I don't hate you either. But I can't forgive myself yet. I nodded. Same. We didn't hug. We didn't kiss. We just stood there, two people surrounded by ashes, afraid to breathe in case the dust never settled. I told myself I wouldn't fall for anyone again, she said. And then you showed up. I looked at her. Do you regret it? She didn't answer, but the silence told me everything. That night, she stayed on the couch. I offered the guest room, but she shook her head. I don't want something that feels too normal, she said. Not yet. I lay awake in my bed, listening to the quiet creak of the house. Every sound reminded me of what we'd done, of what we'd lost. And still, part of me felt lighter. Not free, not healed, but honest. For the first time in months, there were no more lies to tell. Just the wreckage left behind. Months passed. Not in big, cinematic ways. No grand revelations or sweeping closures. Just slow, quiet erosion. One morning you wake up and realize you haven't cried in a while. Then you realize that doesn't mean it stopped hurting. Just that the hurt learned how to sit still. Harper moved away first. It wasn't dramatic. No suitcase at the door. No tearful goodbye in the rain. She just texted me one morning. Found a place. A real one. With sunlight. I called her. You sure? Yeah, she said, her voice soft but steady. I need to try standing on my own again. Without the echo of everything that broke. She didn't ask me to visit. I didn't offer to follow. And maybe that was the point. We were both trying to build something alone, not out of spite, but survival. Hannah and Evan's whirlwind romance burned fast. Brighter than either of them probably expected. At first, they flaunted it everywhere. Weekend trips, yoga retreats, couples therapy Instagram lives. They even started a podcast called Radical Honesty. I listened to the first episode out of morbid curiosity. 10 minutes in, Hannah was talking about reclaiming feminine power through boundaryless love, and Evan was quoting Brené Brown between protein shake sips. I turned it off. By the time fall came around, cracks had started showing. Mutual friends mentioned they were fighting. That jealousy, the very thing they claimed to have transcended, was poisoning them from the inside. Apparently, Evan didn't like Hannah going on dates without him, and Hannah didn't like being told no. Their perfect symmetry collapsed under its own weight. I found out about the breakup through a mutual friend at the grocery store. She's back at her old place, the friend said, voice hushed. Alone. Says she needs to rediscover herself. Again, I didn't feel satisfied. Not angry either. Just tired. When Hannah called 2 weeks later, I almost didn't answer. I was on my back porch, watching the leaves fall, a quiet moment I'd come to protect like it was sacred. Her name lit up my screen, and I stared at it for a long time. Then I picked up. "Hey," I said. A pause. Then, "Hi." Her voice was quieter than I remembered. Not weak, just smaller. "I'm not calling to fight," she said quickly, "or justify anything. I don't know. I've been thinking." "About what?" "Everything." She let out a breath. "I made a mess, Dylan. And I know it. I thought I was breaking free, but I was just running in circles." I said nothing. Not because I didn't have thoughts, but because I'd stopped giving them away for free. "I'm sorry," she said. That one landed differently. Not because I believed she wanted me back, but because she meant it. For once, there was no script in her voice. "I know I lost you," she continued. "And I know I probably deserve to. But if I don't say it now, I'll carry it forever." "Then say it," I told her. "I'm sorry I didn't choose you again. When it mattered." Silence stretched between us. Not awkward, just full. I looked at the trees, their branches bare now, waiting for spring. "I appreciate that," I said. "That's all I needed to hear," she whispered. "I hope you find peace." "You too." We hung up without ceremony. No lingering goodbyes. No, "Let's meet for coffee." She had become part of a chapter one wasn't trying to rewrite. I started finding rhythm in solitude. It was strange at first, setting a table for one, folding laundry no one else had worn, hearing only my own breathing at night. But over time, the silence became a kind of companion. I rediscovered things I'd lost, music I used to love, books I'd meant to read, the stillness of a morning walk with no destination. Sometimes I missed Harper. A lot, actually. But missing her felt clean, like longing without rot. A reminder of something that had been real, even if it didn't last. She sent me a photo once. A picture of a little art studio she was setting up in a bright room with wide windows. No caption, just the image. I stared at it for a long time before replying. "Looks like sunlight." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. In the end, the consequences weren't fiery. They were slow, shifting, like tectonic plates grinding under the surface, subtle, but irreversible. And somewhere in that shifting, I found something unexpected. Not closure, not clarity, just space. Space to heal, to breathe, to stop measuring my worth against someone else's chaos. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. Alone. Quiet. Free. It had been a year. A full turn of seasons since the night everything shattered. Since the dinner, the lies, the confessions, and the silence that followed like dust after demolition. I hadn't heard from Harper in months. Not after the art studio photo. No calls. No updates. Just absence. The kind that stops hurting eventually, because it has no sharp edges left. But she stayed with me, in ways I didn't always expect. Sometimes I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to text her something small, a song she used to hum, a sarcastic thought she would have laughed at. But I never hit send. Not because I didn't want to, because I respected what silence had given us. I'd rebuilt my life, in a way, quietly. A new apartment downtown, nothing fancy, but filled with light. I took a job with a smaller firm. Less prestige, more time. I started sketching again. Nothing serious, just charcoal and coffee-stained paper. It helped when the world got too loud. One afternoon, an old colleague forwarded an invitation. Harper Avery, gallery opening. Saturday night. 7 p.m. Westwood Art Collective. Lines we crossed, a mixed media exhibit. I stared at the email for a long time. It wasn't a question. There was no personal message. No hidden meaning. But it felt like a door that hadn't fully closed had just cracked open. Saturday came. I almost didn't go. I told myself it didn't matter, that I'd already said goodbye. But when I walked into that gallery, the air shifted in a way I hadn't felt in months. The room was warm, crowded, softly lit. People sipped wine and murmured in reverent tones. The walls were lined with abstract pieces, fractured colors, stitched paper, brushstrokes that looked like confessions pulled from the body. And then I saw it. A piece near the center, titled, "What We Became." It was simple. 2 silhouettes made from layered newspaper and charcoal. They were close, but not touching, their forms blurring slightly where they almost met, like smoke curling toward flame, but never quite catching. The caption read, "We crossed lines we never thought we would. We tore pages from stories we didn't want to end." And in the wreckage, We found something honest, even if we couldn't hold it. My breath caught. Thought I might see you, a voice said behind me. I turned. Harper stood in the glow of the overhead lights, wearing a slate blue dress that matched nothing and everything. Her hair was shorter now, tucked behind one ear. No makeup, just her. And she looked peaceful. Hi, I said. She smiled softly. Hi. There was a long, quiet pause, but not an awkward one. We both stood there, looking at the painting. You made that about us, I said. She didn't deny it. I made it for us, so I wouldn't forget what it cost. I nodded. It was never going to last, was it? No, she said. But it was real. I've missed you. She looked at me then. Me too. But I needed the space to figure out who I was when I wasn't someone's mistake. You were never a mistake. She smiled. You say that now, but we both know what we did. Yeah, I said. We crossed lines. She tilted her head. And maybe that's how we finally found ourselves. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. I'm not here to change anything, I said. I didn't come to reopen old wounds. I know. I just wanted to see you. She stepped closer, not too close. Just enough that I could smell the faint trace of lavender on her skin. You look better, she said. Lighter. You too. We stood there for a moment longer. Then she reached out, not for a hug, not to pull me back in, but to gently squeeze my hand. You'll be okay, she said. We both will. I nodded, and then I left. No fanfare, no dramatic goodbye, just one last glance at that painting. Two figures, close but not touching. Smoke and flame, lines crossed, but never erased. I walked out into the night air, the sounds of the city folding around me like a familiar song. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry, or broken, or lost. I was just free. Not the kind of freedom Hannah had preached about, all sharp edges and blurred commitments. No, this was different. This was the kind of freedom that comes from surviving yourself. From learning when to let go. From knowing that some chapters don't get endings, just echoes. And that's enough.